Today's Monday, June the 11th, 2018, and the McDowell County Board of Commissioners are now in session, and the meeting is called to order. At this time, we always begin our meeting with a prayer and the pledge. So if everyone be so kind as to stand, please. And Commissioner Brown will lead us in our prayer, and Commissioner Green will lead us in the pledge.
Bow our heads. Our Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you, dear Lord, for all your many blessings. We thank you for our health and our strength. We thank you, dear Father, for giving us the opportunity to serve our community. And Father, we pray, God, that everything that we do will be in our direct path to uplift our community and lead it in the right way. Bless everything that's said or done here tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks so much. At this time, gentlemen, we have the minutes before us, and you've had the opportunity to read those and review those. What's the pleasure of the board concerning the minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, gentlemen, first item on our appointment schedule tonight is a very... Let's back up. We need to approve our agenda. I'm so excited about the first item on our appointment schedule tonight, which is you guys and girls in the back, that I just skipped over approving our agenda for tonight. So, gentlemen, what's the pleasure on approving tonight's agenda as presented? Are there any additions or deletions? I see a hand.
Do have a deletion, should be letter C under new business, wheel loader purchase. We need to put that off a week or two if that's okay. Just some questions on that. And if I may note as well, there was a mistake in the newspaper as far as the public hearing for the budget. It is not tonight. It will be next Monday at 5. And so that was just a clerical error on our part, and we apologize.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion approved agenda with the deletion.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Now, let's go to the first item on our agenda tonight, and this is the recognition of some highly skilled and talented young people. We have Mary Finley with us tonight, who's going to open up and introduce us to some young men and women who are going to do great things in the future to come. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present about SkillsUSA and recognize our wonderful students. SkillsUSA is a career and technical student organization for students that are enrolled in training programs in the technical and skilled service occupations. It's a partnership of students, teachers, and industry working together to make sure America has a skilled workforce. And so this year's SkillsUSA event was held in Greensboro, April the 18th through the 20th, and there were over 2,300 students there competing in over 120 various competitions. And then there were also over 100 business and industry partners there representing and watching as well. McDowell County Schools had students that competed in automotive, cabinet making, EMT, fire, law and justice, and masonry also. Our EMT students had to prepare a resume, interview, pass a written exam, and complete 4 patient assessment stations, which involved medical and trauma situations. So our first place winner is Mr. Kehler Parker. Second place is Mackenzie Galloway. Third place, Sierra Kelly. And fourth place is Blaine Williams. And of course, their instructor is Mr. Barry McPeters. All 4 of these students are wonderful students. I have the pleasure of seeing them every day interact with students. They also run calls at McDowell High School when we have issues, and they're just a great group to work with. And they also are working an internship program with the McDowell County EMS as well, so they're getting extra work experience to go along with it. This is our 4th year competing with EMT at SkillsUSA, and we've taken top spots every year that we've been in Greensboro. So while I'm here, I also want to thank William Kehler and Adrian Jones and the McDowell County EMS for the support of our program and our students, because we couldn't do it without them. So any questions?
One comment, so out of 2,300 students, we had a first, second, third, and fourth place
In the EMT event.
in the MT event. That is great.
They did a great job, representing McDowell County well.
Wonderful. Comments, questions? Barry, go ahead. You're
I
good.
was going to say something about Blaine this weekend. His mother had messaged me on Facebook. He rides motocross, and he was in an event, and there was an accident that actually happened in front of him. He stopped. He gave up his potential first place finish, stopped and rendered aid to the victim who was unconscious, and he wound up finishing 10th. That says a lot about his character. Not just him, but every one of these is represented up here. They represented your county well and the school system well. But that just goes to show you, and he was the EMT class captain, but that just shows you his integrity. That first place is not always
That's right.
most important. But if you look at it, and my statement was, he's first place in my book. So, attaboy,
Let's give him a
attaboy,
special
Blaine.
hand.
Yeah, get it. Commissioners, anybody else have anything on
Are,
that?
are any of the students also in the ROTC program?
None of these are,
Okay.
no. But sometimes we do share students
Right.
with them.
I think that these type of programs in ROTC's probably one of the best things going for the kids, the students of this age.
I agree.
I'd just like to say I'm proud of them, and also proud of the staff and the leadership in this field, and I appreciate all the hard work that you guys do.
Thank you.
And this is also a partnership here again with the community college
Yes.
and the local school system. Need to highlight McDowell County has got great partnerships among the different agencies, and just another feather in the cap for, as Tony said, for all those instructors and groups involved. And you know, you see we got the best and brightest of the kids here winning all these events consistently. Barry said that consistently McDowell County goes down there and does well. Is that right, Barry? So we're proud of you. Can we have the honor of getting our picture made with all y'all, so it can be in the newspaper and on social media? You ever heard of social media, Facebook, Twitter, or all that stuff? Good deal. Let's take a brief recess. Thanks, guys. Great job. We're proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Good crowd.
And you know, as they're going back to sit down, this has to excite William and his staff to see such bright prospects coming on as people retire and enjoy the fruits of their labor. There's a good, steady potential group coming up that can step in and do a great job, providing excellent customer or client care. Okay, let's move to item B. Actually, we're ahead of schedule. Let's move to old business, item A, facilities update. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Sure. Just a quick update on a couple of items. The first being the courthouse. You may recall under old business, it was the courthouse update for a long time, but as we've got a lot of things going on, I thought I would change that title. The courthouse, they've essentially ended a lot of the overnight demolition, and they have moved on to construction. They were pouring concrete Friday, and they're doing some of the footers for and foundation work for the lower level, the parking deck, as well as the upper level. So that's a great thing to see some of that demolition phase turn into construction. And so folks will start to see more of a positive movement on that front as time moves on the next few weeks. So it is great to see. I think I mentioned it last month. It's worth repeating that the staff, the state officials in the courthouse and the county employees in this building primarily and the courthouse have been very cooperative with the parking. That was a big unknown as far as with that whole parking deck closing, what that would look like. We worried about parking shuttles and that sort of thing. And like the hospital, we've been able to avoid that, thankfully. We have employed shuttles on different court days, more so for jurors, potential jurors. But again, it's been a very positive experience. A little bit of an inconvenience, more exercise for all of us, but maybe needed in some cases, speaking personally. But again, a great start to the project. A couple other items you'll see there. I'll touch on at the May 31st meeting. We had a fairly lengthy discussion on facilities as it relates to the courthouse project and just other projects going on that are impacting us. A lot of times being external agencies that are impacting our operations, our budget, et cetera. So it was really looking at the whole big picture. Again, this is recap for you, but we did discuss the Register of Deeds function at that meeting. And again, going back further than that, there's been a lot of discussion about relocating that office from the courthouse building to another site. One of the more recent discussions had involved once EMS has replacement facilities, potentially looking at that facility as a destination for Register of Deeds after a renovation. And so with that possibility in mind, we asked Mr. Hamrick, one of his visits, to just go through the building and really get a good understanding of what the facility looks like. And he did that, and he said honestly, and he sent a number back. It was between $600,000–700,000 to renovate that building for another use for that Register of Deeds function. And so again, we talked about this in the 31st. You had that cost, maybe $750,000 in 2018 dollars, plus maybe 3 or 4 years out, depending on the relocation schedule for EMS. And so with that information, the board, again, I'm just recapping, the board did vote to authorize the purchase of another facility for county use with the Register of Deeds in mind, as well as other needs. And that building was 35 West Fort Street here in town. And just a quick update on that. The chairman did sign a revised contract this past Friday, and we're working on the due diligence phase for that process. And all indications seem positive to close in early July on that building. And so again, with that building essentially being ready to go with minor modifications, you'll be able to move the Register of Deeds function into that building, which will free up that office, as you've talked about for many, many, many times in this room. That will free up that space for the district attorney's office. And so if we didn't have somewhere to move that function, the Register of Deeds, what we were looking at was temporarily relocating that function to do the heating and air and windows, and then moving the function back in, and then at some point moving it out to a final destination, renovating it again for the district attorney's needs, and then moving the district attorney into that space. So with this building purchase, we've cut out about 3 or 4 steps and a lot of expense and a lot of time. So instead of 3 or 4 years, maybe with the EMS building, a huge expense, you've got a much lower expense, much sooner timeline, moving the district attorney's office much sooner, saving a lot of money on that renovation. So again, an excellent move to get that building under contract and get that move planned and started. So again, a recap from that May 31st meeting, but just important to do so.
One thing to add to that, Ashley, whenever we were looking at doing the renovation on the courthouse, we did factor in a cost for moving everyone out and then back in. And it was, and I may be off on this, but I believe that cost was up around $350,000.
I think so.
To do that. And so this would be a big percentage of that cost that we're saving.
That's right. You can turn around and.
Yes, Commissioner Brown said you're basically buying the building for what it would cost you to
Exactly.
move them in and move them out. And as you said, 4 moves, now you're down to 1 move. Ashley, make sure the board has staff recommendation for who or what other groups could utilize that building also. I think it's important to note that
Right.
it's not just going to be a register of deeds function completely and solely, but there's a room in the back that's something could go into, so let's explore all the options on that too and give the
We will
board
do
your
that.
recommendation.
And we'll, sometime this week, we hope to have staff back in to do some more concrete measurements as far as, room sizes and that sort of thing. And we'll bring back a floor plan and look at what staff could fit in the facility and that kind of thing.
So this is really a big deal because in our plan, and you guys, we talked about it, and those who will be watching, as far as the courthouse project, debt taken on by the county this year, the school project, Old Fort School, whatever the school board deems the best and whatever they recommend to us, that financially come on next year. And then William Kehler's building is the next building that we need to go ahead and William and staff's working on with Chuck Hamrick on plans and designs, so we can go ahead and get them in that building, and that'd be 3 years out roughly. And but we had to move the register of deeds operation to be able to get Ted Bell down, and that saved about 4 years by buying that building right there, because she would have been after William.
Right.
Other comments or questions? Okay. Let's go. Ashley, you got about 3 minutes. You can squeeze this one in. Item B, library lift discussion.
Yes, sir. I believe it was maybe 2 months ago, Mr. Brinkley, the library director, was here essentially to talk about a need that's been identified, and it's probably been a need since the building was renovated about 50 years ago. Again, you have the original post office building, and I believe the late 60s, someone will correct me, when the county received the building, it was added onto to add the library function. At that time, we didn't have ADA and those sorts of things, so they did not factor in an elevator or a lift or anything. So right now, folks that are limited mobility, that are on the main floor, and they want to go to the lower level, they have to go outside all the way around the building and down a front ramp in the front. And so I mentioned 2 months ago, this is something that staff has been the library staff has been working on for a number of years as far as grants. I've applied for 3 or 4, then been turned down, all of them. And so we did have a private donor come forward, is anonymous at this point, that had offered $8,000 if the county commits to do this project in the next budget year that starts next month. And so again, you asked last time to have more quotes. You had one from Asheville Elevator. We called, staff called about 3 or 4 other companies. Apparently there's a lot of work going on. We did have one other company quote. It was very similar to what we've been working with. I believe it was Excel Elevators. And again, their quote was very close to the neighborhood of where we are. Had been hoping to end up around the 27,000 range. And so we currently have about $10,000 sort of reserved for this, county dollars. We have $2,000 from the Friends of Library. We have the $8,000 verbal commitment at this point, and we have $10,000 set aside in next year's budget. And again, the $8,000 is really what is hinging on your decision to move forward. If it's something you want to wait on, that's probably going to be withdrawn. But it seems like we have the funding lined up with that private donation, if you're all in favor of moving forward.
Well, you've got a private donor that's willing to give $8,000, which is almost half of the $20,000 more you would need to do the project, and to have a building that is not accessible without going outside. I don't know why we would want to make people go outside in the rain with disabilities to come back in at lower interest. I'm all for it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we move with it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, commissioners. Let's move to our next item on our appointment schedule. This is the Alberto response update. Mr. Kehler, come on up, sir. Good to have him back in the country.
It's good to be back.
This way. There it is. It's coming up.
Appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight and give you an update on our agency's response to Tropical Storm Alberto and the flash flooding. It will end up being a historic event that occurred here in McDowell County on May 29th. As everyone knows, this was, prior to this event, we had an excessive amount of rainfall that preceded this. We actually had a flash flood event on May 18th into May 19th that affected the Muddy Creek watershed area on the south end, southeastern McDowell County through Sugar Hill, Glenwood, Dysersville. That created damage. I think it's important to note that there is consideration by the state and FEMA to lump these two events together as one incident, and that's currently how we are proceeding within our office. I think it's important when we look at the functions of emergency management within that specific division. You're looking, of course, at preparedness, and that is the work that we are completing on sunny days to prepare for rainy days, if you will. What's interesting about the event that occurred a couple of weeks ago or a week and a half ago is that our agency, along with county organizations, had prepared for this event, and it's very scary to look at the similarities of what our April 3rd exercise was in comparison to the events that actually took place. A number of folks that are in this room took place in that emergency drill, and a lot of the things come to fruition, unfortunately, on the night of May 29th. But it's important that we are prepared, and I felt really strong about our agency's response. We have always tried to train 3 deep for every position, to have a continuity plan, and Deputy Director Walker and Jones were in the EOC and in command that night, and our entire staff, along with all county departments and agencies, came together as one team and done a phenomenal job. The response phase, of course, started that night as flash flooding developed. It was the first major event at the new EOC. We cannot thank you for the support that you've given to allow that EOC to be constructed like it was, and this event proved how coordination is assisted by a facility layout in having the room to work an incident. We are in the recovery phase, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these. We came out of response the Monday following the event and immediately went into recovery. And I think that is the commitment of our agency, is we respond appropriately, adequately, and in a timely fashion, but we also follow that up into the recovery phase to where we get individuals assistance where we can. We file for public assistance for the county, the town, and the city. So we entered recovery on Monday, and FEMA officials were here on Tuesday filling out applications for public assistance. So we're committed to move this process along, and the state and federal partners have done that as well so far. Just as a recap, when we in recovery, we're looking at two types of assistance: public assistance, referred to as PA, and then individual assistance, or IA. And I'll speak to the update to those in just a second. And then the last phase of a disaster is prevention and mitigation. This will be an important part as we look for federal funding to look at areas that have had repeated flash flooding or damage and see if there is mitigation funding that can assist with essentially mitigating a future disaster. Recapping our response, and this is very, this is a summary. We could stay here an hour and recap the different events and the heroic actions of emergency personnel, the Red Cross and others in this county. In the 911 center, there was over 800 phone calls managed by McDowell County 911 Communications during 24-hour response period. To give you an average, we normally field 250 to 300 calls a day. Staff actually entered into the computer-aided dispatch over 600 calls for service during that 24-hour period. Flash flood emergency was issued by the National Weather Service. Just to give historical perspective on a flash flood emergency, that is a very rare warning that is issued. In the history of the Greenville-Spartanburg office, they have issued 2 flash flood emergencies since that office was created. One was in downtown Greenville, and the second was in McDowell County on May 29th. Flash flood emergency is an extreme warning that there is life-threatening flooding occurring. And like I said, it's very rare that you see one of those. 17 citizens were rescued from the flash flood during this incident. Lake Tahoma declared a Class 1 emergency, which triggered us to activate the emergency activation plan that we practice, and therefore there was an evacuation, mass notifications, and activation of the emergency alert system. There's been some confusion about that, and I want to make sure that this is very clear and our agency is very transparent, because the number one thing is the public has to trust our agency when we issue an evacuation order. We don't take those lightly, and those come based upon protocols. This isn't someone looking and making a judgment call. Lake Tahoma, when they declared a Class 1 emergency, that was on the recommendation of the engineer due to a landslide that occurred close to the dam. People can second guess that call, but in the middle of the night, that engineer or that warden, the folks who made that call, were doing so under darkness, under flash flooding, high water event, and doing it in the interest of public safety. We stand behind our decision to activate the emergency action plan based upon the officials at Lake Tahoma declaring the emergency, and we work hand in hand. We practice that activation of the EAP, and we will come away like any incident and do an after-action report and see where we had strengths and weaknesses and capitalize on each of those. All emergency agencies, including fire, rescue, EMS, EM, 911, law enforcement. You had DMV officers from the state that were assisting. Wildlife, DOT, churches were out running their vans to assist evacuees in the midst of floodwaters. The Red Cross was out manning shelters. DSS was out. But everyone came together as one team with one mission. So to summarize the response, you had a flash flood emergency. You had historic flooding, many of which the locals that we spoke to doing damage assessment, specifically along Catawba River Road, said that this flooding was worse than the flood of 77 along Catawba River in Old Fort. While we had 6 injuries, we ended this storm with 0 fatalities. And that's a testament to the work of all of the agencies that came together, all of our command staff in the EOC, and the men and women of fire, rescue, law enforcement that spent their night rescuing folks out of floodwaters and then warning for evacuations. As we moved into recovery, we quickly got to work on installing temporary footbridges for citizens that were stranded. Their private bridges had been washed out. A number of these locations, it was elderly citizens that couldn't cross the creek to access their house. There was a couple locations they were accessing it, and it was an accident waiting to happen. We had already installed temporary footbridges in the Vane Mountain, Sugar Hill area from the May 18th flood. You can see this one right here. There was a secondary flood that knocked it off the foundation, had to be reset. But this was done by the North Carolina Forest Service and the bridge crews. And we installed a total of 7 bridges. Initial damage assessment was performed. One of the things that we are still concerned about is areas that remain unstable. This is an example of an embankment next to a foundation of a house. We've seen a number of landslides. We're nearing 50 landslides across McDowell County that have been documented, and we continue to find others. Federal declaration, the FEMA officials were here evaluating the need for a federal declaration. We are anticipating that decision to come soon, and that would be under PA or public assistance. Under PA, that is a 75% federal reimbursement. North Carolina is one of the few states that picks up the remaining 25% for a full 100% reimbursement to the city, the town, and the county if a federal disaster is declared. That would be for storm-related response cost under Part B of public assistance. Debris removal is under also public assistance. That would be off of water sewer lines or in other public areas. Individual assistance, our agency worked on that again today. North Carolina is working with FEMA as well as local emergency managers to estimate the damage that is underinsured or uninsured damage in each community, and we hope to finalize that. We continue to get damage reports in, even as of today. Here's what we have so far. 30 residential structures have been damaged by floodwater, 9 businesses damaged, 24 private bridges damaged or destroyed, 28 private driveways have been washed out, 85 RV campers have either been damaged or destroyed, and 6 recreational parks and trails that have been damaged. As we move forward, this is only the start of hurricane season. Emergency services remains well prepared. The drill we conducted in April will provide good direction for us as we move forward along with the after action. Recovery will take time. Our staff today began calling the citizens who had filed damage reports with our agency. One of the things that I continue to emphasize to our staff is it's important that the citizens who have filed damage reports know that this has not just been taken and then it's been lost or is not followed up on. We're actively following up each report of damage, and we will be submitting those in conjunction with the state to FEMA for an IA consideration or individual assistance consideration. But most importantly is keep citizens informed, and any disaster communication is one of our primary responsibilities with the media as well as the citizens to ensure they know where we are at in each process, whether it's in response or recovery. And then we'll formulate the after action and lessons learned. It also helps us guide training for future exercises, improves our operational readiness, but overall achieves our goal of being a more resilient community. You've heard me say that for years. That's our main objective, is to be a more resilient community for disasters, and we're well on our way to doing that. I think the final comment is, fortunately, there was no lives lost. We know that there are people that are still hurting from the damage of this flood, many of which are elderly folks, and we're committed to being there until the recovery process is over and being an advocate for these citizens to ensure they are eligible or receive any assistance that they might be eligible for. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay. Hey, you get lights. Lynn, lights. Okay. Well, I'll say that I was there that night. Ashley was there at the command center, and I was so impressed with the. William said in the response phase of the 4 categories, you had people. You said 3 deep, and who could run it, and Craig Walker was leading, and Adrian and others. Everybody had a specific role. I saw that night. Everybody had a role. Everybody had a job they were doing, and the city was there. The Alan Lawrence was there, the wildlife was there, the county. I mean, just a host of people in that command center. And Lynn was out in the field helping to move people. But I would say this: anybody who would criticize what was done that night, I would rather side on safety of the people of McDowell County, and anybody who would have a problem with that, making sure our people are safe, they need to get over that. We had people, that dam, if that dam would have broke, 20 minutes, it'd be in Marion, right? 40 minutes, it'd be in Nebo. So people would not have had an opportunity to get out. And the people that at the shelter at the YMCA, I went up there about 4:45 at morning to take a wheelchair. And, those people were not complaining. Those people, sure, they would have liked to stay in their beds, but with the imminent threat of a dam failure, they definitely were glad that they were notified and were asked to leave their house and went to a safe place in the event that occurred, which is the good thing is it didn't occur. But listen, I'm going to side with these people right here, and their recommendation was spot on. Sure, like you said, at night, you can't tell what's going on. You've got historic flooding in the command center at night. These people were so detailed. They were charting the rise of the rivers and streams in McDowell County. They could give you, somebody would call into the command center and say, I live on such a street. The state had the maps already there, and they could say, you need to be, if nobody's came there and got there yet, which they were going as quick as they could go, right, Lynn, to these doors and making people aware of the possible threat. I was just so impressed with it. I never seen anything work so smoothly as what occurred that night, Ash. Is that a fair statement? In that command center, everybody worked together. Craig was, in your absence, was doing what he needed to do, but everybody had a role, and everybody was performing their role as y'all have practiced and drilled, and I was just so impressed and McDowell County is very fortunate, and we are blessed to have such a group of people who train, who have the best interest of the people that they serve and the capacities they serve in at heart. And I just say hats off to you and your crowd. That night really reinforced in my mind the fact that money that we spend in that area is some of the most well-spent money we can do. It just, great job.
I think I forgot to highlight it, but this picture right here of the DOT truck that was plowing a landslide and additional slide come off the mountain, pushed the DOT truck in the river where flash flooding was occurring. So now you have two people on top of a dump truck that are needing rescued from the floodwater. And the emergency personnel, Old Fort Fire Department, McDowell Rescue, one of our guys got there towards the end. They rescued those two individuals while the landslide continued to come off the hill. We actually had personnel that was in mud above their knees. And could easily,
I'll speak to that.
Could easily get trapped.
And Chad Robinson came into the command center about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was the one that was involved in that mud up to, he was in harm's way with that landslide.
We could have very easily lost not only the DOT workers, but we could have lost emergency personnel that night.
William, I'd like to commend you and your staff, those folks that work for you, and also DSS, the churches, the fire departments, the way that everybody came together. Both of these events, I've had opportunity, and I just can't hardly stay at home when I know that some of our citizens are being displaced. So I either go out and help the fire department or go to the shelters and see if our assistance is needed. But to see the way that folks are prepared and come together in those situations, I just have to commend you. It's just seamless and works like a well-oiled machine, coming together and everybody working together, the different agencies that put things together, people donating things. And when folks are displaced, their pets are also displaced. Now this is something that really impressed me. they immediately started making phone calls to get crates
Yeah.
to handle, because they can't take them into the shelter, but protection was made for their pets also. People donating food for their pets. Churches coming together and offering their buses and their vans to evacuate people. It's just amazing. My hat's off to you.
Yeah, when I went to the YMCA, Lynn, they had a lot of the, I don't want to say crates, what's the official term for animals that you transport? Kennels. They had kennels lined up, and you could hear the different animal dogs barking, and I thought, well, that's good. They're taking care of the animals too. Right. Tony, anything you add?
I'd just like to say, William, I appreciate the professionalism that you guys performed and showed in this event. It was, hats off to you guys, all of you that were involved in that. I have another question, though, on the citizens that were taken under by some of the events of this, such as, of course, some, and I sent some pictures to Ashley of one of the bridges that was blown out on Catawba River. The procedure on this, do these people need to notify someone individually and get a request or an application in for assistance on that?
Sure. So
But I think that a lot of people don't know that.
That's right.
And so we need to make that aware to these people before you submit that.
Sure. So since the storm and as we were moving from response to recovery, we did a number of things. Number one is we established a flood damage hotline that came directly into the EOC and now comes into our office to where people could report that, the damage. We set up an online link as well on our website where they can go online and report the damage. We advertise that in the media as well as the NIXL and the mass distribution or the notifications that we do. But we can continue to take that. This initial assessment by the state and FEMA is to see if enough damage exists in the numerous communities in western North Carolina that's been affected to get an individual assistance declaration. If an IA declaration is not made at the federal level, the state will come back and determine whether there's enough damage to do a declaration at the state level for individual communities, which has been done in the past. But definitely if they do have damage to their business, their structure or residential structure, their driveway, we're talking culverts washed out and bridges, then that's something that they do need to report to our agency.
Okay.
What's the deadline? That's a good question, Tony. What's the deadline to report that?
There's not going to be a deadline for our agency, but the faster that we have that, the more information we can compile. We would want that this week, of course, but this
So they just notify you, they don't get a contractor to come in and assess what it would cost, they need to have that too?
So
Prepared.
we do like estimates if they have them, but what FEMA or the state will tell you is don't wait to do, if you have the means to complete these repairs, this assessment could take some time. So this isn't going to be something that we are able to turn in 5-7 days.
Is it possible that we could make public the number that they need to call through our media, McDowell News, and our even with Van on the radio?
Yeah, we can definitely send that notification out again. We've advertised it since the storm, but we'll be glad to keep re-advertising that number. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Barry, anything on that?
No, I think it's, everybody's pretty well said. It's hard to know, when you emergency services that, things like this can happen. One of my classes at the high school was emergency management, and we had just completed out flood. Went out to River Breeze Campground. That's where we always do a lot of our educational field trips to, is that they came running back into class that very next morning and said, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we studied. And it's kind of like a deja vu. And I think it scared them once they realized the potential that was going on here. Like I say, 1977, I remember going out to the airport and everything out there, the hangars and everything were underwater and water's all the way up. And I haven't seen a flood like this in years. We've had problems, but nothing to this magnitude. I think it goes back to what they said. If somebody had a problem with evacuation, and I never heard anybody complain about it, but if they did, it's almost kind of like, shame on them for that, if they had an issue. Because life is number one. Property, you can be replaced, it can be fixed, Yesterday at church, DOT up and down 226A constantly, hauling rock and gravel, and they are working night and day to get everything. The amount of damage done and the work that's been accomplished is amazing. Even from DOT side, they're not stopping. But again, you know, just talking about that money. I mean, you know, there's always somebody who wants to take advantage, they can get an old damage done that was their fault. You know, that's not what this is about. This is people that are in dire needs that,
Absolutely.
you know, not to take advantage of a situation.
Sure.
So, we appreciate you.
Okay. Commissioner Vaughn.
I'd just like to thank you and your team. Did a fantastic job. The training that you've done proved itself to be true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, William, appreciate the excellent report and
Appreciate
your
you
staff.
having us in tonight.
Wonderful job. And we look forward to your staff being in a new building. Here's our motto: the board feels like if we got the best in the state, they need to be in the best housed facilities in the state.
And don't even think about moving to Hawaii, because we're not going to let you.
It's a rock. We got
A volcanic rock, just remember
It's a
that.
rock.
Lots of rain and volcanic rock.
Okay, thank you, William.
I love
At this time, let's move to our next item on our appointment schedule, item C. This is the Universal Walking Trail. We have the distinguished Chuck Abernathy with us tonight, who's going to come report. So, Mr. Abernathy, come forward, sir.
Distinguished. That was a good presentation, and it's impressive. I think it would be interesting, as an aside, for people in layman's terms to understand what a dam break would do to that area. And I mean, just lay it out and explain it, because it's, from my memory, it's just devastating to a major area if that were to happen. So, let's see here. Is this what I'm using? Okay. Well, I've got 60 minutes, right? No, 15.
2 minutes, Chuck. No.
We've had a discussion of this previously. The board did not vote to authorize, but when the master plan was presented to the board, there was a discussion of the trail and the development of the amenities around the pond. I'm going to go to, well, sure. Why are you laughing?
Because you passed it.
I did. I was going to go to the map, yeah. Sorry.
That's why he gets extra time.
Might need a 60.
Okay, stop. All right. So the discussion that we had, is this the light right here? Right here. Okay. The one that's got light on. Okay. So the first discussion that we had, you have got a trail on county property and community college property that is around .48, about a half a mile in length, that follows the old road bed from the railroad track to the Universal building. The discussion that we had previously is that we would bring the trail across the street, cross this pond right here, all across the dam, come along the west side of the pond, and then come up through to this point. So basically, we would not encircle because of some wetlands that are located in here, but we would basically follow the perimeter on the west side of the upper pond and the east side of the lower pond. That's about a mile and about a mile .2. Okay, so one change in what we're proposing is to shorten that quite dramatically, and to basically bring the trail to this point right here. So we would have this section open, and then we would leave the remaining, we would mark the remaining area with some markers that I'm going to show you in a minute, but not spend the money, basically approach that as a phase two in the interest of money. And then we had also in phase one a trail that would come off right here and go to the top of the mountain and construct an observation deck. So that is a second thing that we will put off. What we're looking to do is to open this area up when school starts in August, and to have this section of trail right here constructed. And so that'll be my presentation, and I've got 3 or 4 people here that are on the committee with me that are going to want to speak to you. Okay, I'm going to speak from this because this kind of summarizes kind of a major series of decisions that the Board of Commissioners and county staff need to make and settle on. We've sent this over to you before, and there's a couple of things that keep changing. So I want to highlight those, make real sure that everybody's on the same page. So this sign will be at the entrance behind or next to the guard shack that's currently there at the entrance. So the park would be open during daylight hours. It would not be gated. It would operate like the park over in Black Mountain on the lake that's up there. And just running through these regulations quickly: no alcoholic beverages or tobacco products, no firearms. Dogs are permitted but have to be kept on a leash. Owners have to clean up after their pets. Bicycles are permitted but on the trail only. No swimming is permitted. We have changed boating. Every time we do the sign, we've changed it, and we're now on a no boating final thought here, and I'll show you why in a minute, except where the community college or early college wants to do supervised events. But there are I think some reasons why we need to at least start off not having people out there in boats. The state of North Carolina fishing laws will apply. There would be additional signage on the pond related to that. No motorized vehicles on the trail except wheelchairs, and the park would be operated by McDowell County. So that's pretty much the guidelines that we've settled on, and if you approve this, that you would be agreeing to. This is one of the markers that we want to use to basically show people where the trail is. The trail construction will be about 7 feet wide, and will have about 3/4 inch stone, not real deep, just because it's already pretty much a road bed. So we would have these markers continue all the way along the original layout of the trail, minus the gazebo, but basically running around to the second pond. And the Trails Association, who we took about 7 or 8 of them out there as well, and they just couldn't believe this as an asset, loved it. Said that if money is an issue, to basically put these up and let the trail function like it is right now back in there, and then we can go in when we've got the funds and finish it. This gives you an idea of the issue with the boating. So you're standing on the dam right here. That walkway goes out to an overflow in the pond, and you can see the wheel right there. Oh shucks. Yeah, let me get that. There you go, right there in the water. I didn't get a good picture of this. There's a concrete square right here that is currently open, and I talked to Terry and Ashley about putting a cover over it, but that's probably 15 feet deep, and if someone got on that and fell in, then we're talking about just a major issue. So one of the things that we're waiting on in the way of a cost quote is a fence with barbed wire at the top of it that would go about 3 feet into the water on each side of this walkway, come up with a gate, and then go back in on the other side with major signage saying keep out, danger, etc. So this is really there's some liability with anything that you do, and everyone that I've talked to said this is not haphazard or foolhardy, but you want to be real careful. This is not enough right here. I wouldn't be comfortable, because all you've got to do is duck under this pole and you can walk on out. There's also an overflow if you were in the water, where the water basically goes into like a little spillway, if you will, where overflow is pulled down. So that's something we wouldn't want people to be in as well. So questions to this point? And I did not, doesn't look like the budget got on this. Do they have that in their packet? Okay, it's really not that much. What we've got is $498 for the entrance sign. City of Marion is going to do pedestrian walkway and pedestrian signs for free, and so that's covered. The fencing around the intake, we're obtaining that still. Scraping and the gravel is going to be about $3,500 for this section. So again, it's not a major dollar amount. Trail signs and warning signs and all that, we're looking at $350, and then dog stations and bags about $250. So total all that up, if $3,500 was budgeted by the county, we're going to be somewhere where we're going to have to raise about $1,500 to finish it. So it's, again, not real expensive. The Frisbee golf is going to be done. Early college can talk about that, but the amenity of a Frisbee golf course being laid out on the west side of the pond is something that we've looked into. There's a lot of excitement about that, and that's not shown as a cost because they would raise the money and would come up with that. So questions? We want to pursue money from the state of North Carolina that Ashley and Molly Sandfoss are working on. I think we're ready to go. Goal would be to put this in operation when school opens in August. And I don't want to talk with Lisa and Eric and the young man that we've got with us from the school. If it's okay, can they address the board?
Absolutely.
You guys want to come up?
Hey, let's get the lights.
As you can imagine, with us at McDowell Tech, there's not a lot of facilities for activities. We don't have a gymnasium or anything, so when we started talking about this, our students got really excited, especially about the disc golf, because we have one young man, he was going to try to be here tonight, but he's actually, he does disc golf competitively and is very successful at it. And so he and I had talked in the spring, and we actually have $2,500 set aside to actually put the disc golf in, and it would be another opportunity for our students to have access. I mean, we have a cement pad, I don't know if you guys have been down there, but with 2 basketball goals, and that's about it besides the walking trail. So this is just one more thing. On Fridays, we were going to add, in addition, we have what's called Flexible Fridays, so our students don't have electives during the week. So we do electives on Fridays. They have clubs. We were going to have a disc golf club. We're going to have a fishing club. And, of course, we know they have to have their license and all that. But it's just a couple of other things that we can add to what we offer the students. So we hope you will consider, this project. And when it goes all the way up to the top, I mean, it's going to be amazing.
Especially for what you were saying.
Okay.
I don't know, it's about adding clubs into it and bringing the clubs in mind and just ideas for all that. Just, like you said, the fishing clubs, I myself like to fish. Like I have my fishing license, I go fishing about every day this summer. It's the main thing I do. I think that'd be and I don't really fish a lot of ponds, and I feel like that'd be a good idea for that.
Great.
Yeah, I was just going to add just the potential for it. I mean, what we could offer in August would be great, but if you see how the green, the perspective trail goes up the mountain, the property is just beautiful. I'm sure you guys have been out there, but the potential for adding that trail and having mountain bike trails and running trails, and I mean, I think it's just something that is very, very attractive. It could be very beneficial to the county.
Okay, great. Comments, questions? Okay, Ashley, anything you need to add?
No, it is a beautiful area. It's a little secret right now, but I think open it up.
It truly is.
It is. Open it up to the public, it will be a great thing.
I've been out there and walked around and looked it over. It's gorgeous, and I think it's a great idea.
It's a shame that we have that there and it's not open to the public is what I think. My husband and I last spring, been over a year ago, we went up there during spring break and was just walked up to the upper pond, and you look at that area, and we actually had a 5K run for Sarah Painter, one of our students, and we used the pond area. We got permission to go around to use it as part of the 5K. It was a night run, and so it was, the kids were like, why can't we come up? And we said, well, we just can't right now. And so anyway, it would be awesome if we could, open it up and the public could have access to it.
Okay. Ashley, are we supposed to take action? I mean, what's your recommendation?
I think if you would endorse it, so we can keep moving forward on it. There has been a lot of checking with different agencies like the city and different folks to help out on the materials and costs and things, but an endorsement would be helpful.
I don't mind for myself to go ahead and just approve it, and not just endorse it, and approve it, and just seek the grant money or partner money, get all you can.
I'm going to go ahead with it.
Okay, motion, second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question. Who owns the land now?
Oh, ma'am, the board, I'm so sorry, I hate to interrupt, but the board is in its session right now, so you can't be talking right now. Sorry about that. But they'll be glad to answer any question you've got right out there. Y'all step in the hallway, they'll answer anything. Chuck, this young lady's got some questions, if you don't mind, help her out.
I'll handle.
Okay, great. All right, let's move to the next item, y'all, on the appointment schedule, item D. This is a 6 o'clock appointment. We have Carol Wolfenberger with the McDowell Hospital with an update. So, Carol, the floor is yours. Good to see you.
Hey, good evening. So while I'm waiting for Cheryl to pull that up, I wanted to first wish Commissioner Brown a happy birthday.
Oh.
We share a birthday. I'm 18. I don't know what you're
That
doing.
is correct.
But, we've been doing a lot at the hospital, and I wanted to provide you with that update on Mission Hospital McDowell. And so part of this whole project has been the removal of the former facility. And so on behalf of Mission Hospital McDowell, we want to present to the commissioners a commemorative brick. It says the McDowell Hospital, 1983 through 2018, and said in appreciation of your service and support for our community. And so I'm going to give it to Chairman.
Yes.
And then I have each one for each of you in my office.
Okay.
Carry them all
All right.
tonight.
Okay, Ashley, I will present this to you now.
Okay.
Put it in the appropriate place. Thanks, Carol. Thanks so much.
So as I just told you, the demolition is completed. They're busy grading for the flat parking lot. And from a safety standpoint, I'm looking forward to when that is a reality for our community. It's anticipated that that first phase of the parking will be finished in mid-August. And so rain staying away and everything else going well, then we will absolutely have that flat parking component. And I do want to say this. As we moved the hospital over, we used what's called the Hospital Incident Command, which is a mimic from what emergency management preparedness always used and what you all reflected on earlier. And we were practicing, weren't we, William? William, Adrian, and Craig helped us because it's something we learned from Hurricane Katrina. And I just want to tell you, being proactive is the answer. And so what I saw in this county a week and a half ago was phenomenal. And while we were on standby, we really didn't have much to do with it, did we? But we had to be on standby just to say, we're ready from an emergency preparedness. But that coordination means everything for the safety of our county, and I appreciate it. and I know you missed it. But Adrian and William, we were in great hands, so very good job. So we are busy at our hospital. We are busy taking care of patients, and we're looking forward to the finishing of the flat parking, which will be the last phase. So I came tonight to just update you on where we are with the letter of intent. As announced in March, we've entered into a letter of intent with Hospital Corporation of America, which is an investor-owned entity out of Brentwood, Tennessee. And a letter of intent just means that we've mutually agreed to figure out if this would be a great arrangement for health care in Western North Carolina. And when we entered that process, it's about 90 to 120-day process. And so we are in the process right now of having many visitors. Likewise, we will visit their organizations, but we've had anywhere from facilities to we have governmental compliance folks to pharmacy individuals coming and actually looking at the service that we provide in Western North Carolina. So one of the things with Hospital Corporation of America, it wasn't lightly chosen. This was vetted amongst many candidates. There was a true strategy behind how do we make sure that in the long run, healthcare is sustained in Western North Carolina. I don't know if you saw any news release from the Treasury Department this weekend, but right now they've backed off viability of Medicare. They've reduced it to being in trouble in the year 2026. So that's always been the math problem, not only for Mission's health system, but for all of healthcare. We have to figure out ways to keep our community healthy and avoid the high cost of healthcare and be there when we need to be for emergencies. And so as we looked at that from a partnership standpoint, it was very important that we had the data to be able to make decisions. We find that within HCA. They have the Sarah Cannon Cancer Center Institute, a nationally known, internationally known cancer institute that will actually bring clinical trials not available to us before because they're unique to the Sarah Cannon institution. And then we see many synergies that we can't, as a smaller health system, actually achieve. We would see efficiencies around the cost of goods, the cost of pharmaceuticals, those things that we can't negotiate as a smaller entity. HCA, just a little bit about them. They're one of the largest or the largest investor-owned entity. They have 179 acute care hospitals, a plethora of other entities, freestanding emergency centers, ambulatory services, and they have a wide range of physicians. HCA was established by Dr. Frist, he was a physician, and Bill Frist, Senator Bill Frist, is also a physician and is the son of Dr. Frist. So from a community standpoint, again, the vision from my standpoint is really about the sustainability of healthcare and about the ability to address the social determinants of health within Western North Carolina. As part of this transaction, the proposal is to establish a successor foundation. I've given you just a little slide on your handout. The Successor Foundation would infuse tens of millions of dollars into Western North Carolina every year, and that compares to $1 million that we do right now. And so you can imagine when you're looking at food, activity, abuse, addiction, what we need are resources to help us build that infrastructure. So this foundation would be separate. It's not part of HCA. And it would absolutely be, to me, the thing that can actually change the needle on our outcomes for many, many years to come. And one of the things that I think Mr. Wooten might smile about a little bit is tax dollars. So the thing that would change is we currently are tax exempt. We would pay taxes to both city and county appropriately, and that creates opportunities to build the infrastructure for our communities. We have, I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
You say thank you? Have you calculated it? You know, it's a great, I think, opportunity for us. We have a website, missionhealthforward.org, where you can actually stay up to date on that information. What I've provided you tonight might be the most up to date right now, but do check back to that website. It will give you information regarding timing. We are currently, again, just in due diligence. We do not yet have a definitive agreement. I do anticipate that to be later this summer. And then there would be Attorney General review of that process. Any questions for me?
Carol, if the buyout does occur, is there any discussion of any facilities that Mission currently owns that would be closed? I think with the investment here in McDowell with the new hospital, I'm sure that's not an option. That would remain open for our community, correct?
The definitive agreement, again, isn't finished at this time, but parts of those agreements really are about the commitment for a period of time to maintaining those facilities and services, if that helps
So
you.
you're going to lock them in for a set amount of years, and then after that,
Absolutely.
HCA can do what they so desire, right?
Well, there's all kinds of things that may be in that definitive agreement that provide umbrellas or first rights of refusal, things like that.
How many days has the hospital been either at max capacity or without any beds?
Well, that's a great question.
We always get asked that. It's like, listen to the scanner, you hear transports
Yes.
going out. How many, do you have an idea?
So
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay. It is a metric that, maybe William can tell me that metric, but I don't have the exact percentage, but what we monitor is how many times we are at 25, which is our inpatient capacity. We have 5 birthing center suites as well, so the total's 30. We have, most recently, we've at least had one day a week when we were at 70%, which is unusual. So pretty much since March the 9th, we pretty much kept 24, 25 patients in the hospital. That in the same patient, there's a lot of churn, as our average daily census is around 3. So there's a lot of churn of patients, but we are absolutely monitoring that. And we do have more transports that are requested because we don't have additional beds. But we do use, if EMS is not available, we use RTS, which is the Mission transport system.
So that kind of ties in with the mental patient situation. How is that transpiring now?
So remember that foundation I talked to you about?
Yes.
So this isn't just unique to McDowell, it's unique to the entire nation. But we went through a period of time where we didn't really have that many behavioral health patients we were holding, but since the last, this was an observation by our CNO. She says every time there's a public event like a school shooting, we'll see a rise in behavioral health patients, and I've not correlated that, but we could palpate it in May. And so we've had days where we've held 9 patients. That's more than we want to hold. We actually don't want to hold any. We want to get them to the right level of care, and we're doing everything we can within our system to do so. So you probably wanted a specific statistic. I'll be happy to give that to Ashley.
Maybe later on or something like that, just to.
Okay.
Because I know that was an issue for quite a while with ER.
And until there's more capacity within, our region and our state, every ER is going to experience the same thing. When we're at 9, I would say Mission Health is at 70, 50, 70, something. It's pretty significant across all of the region when we start to hold a behavioral health patient.
And one last one I'm through. How many rural hospitals or facilities do you currently operate?
Mission Health.
Yes.
So we have our tertiary facility is Mission Hospital, and then there are 5 member hospitals that are rural hospitals. Transylvania, Angel Medical Center in Franklin, Highlands Cashers, and Blue Ridge Regional Hospital in Spruce Pine.
Any other comments, questions?
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Carol, thanks for being here, and thanks for the information and the handouts, and we look forward to more positive information coming as you move through the process.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, let's move to our next item. Under old business, this will be item C, the Stacy Hill Road Water Update. Mr. Wooten, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just a very brief update. We will have a pre-construction meeting for the Stacy Hill Road water project this Friday with the contractor. I think Central Builders was their name. They are raring to go, and we're just doing some of the final preparation for the work now. If you'd like, we did a groundbreaking for our last water project. We may want to do that again, maybe somewhere in the central part of the area, maybe near a church or something that might have parking and that kind of thing. But we can coordinate that and do it not too far into the project. But we'll be in touch on that. But a great opportunity to build our system and serve some folks that have a need.
Okay, great. Comments, questions? There being none, let's move to the next item under old business, item D, the Greenway project update. Go ahead, Mr. Wooten.
Yes, sir. So this project, this is the River Greenway, Catawba Greenway. It was actually scheduled and was advertised on June 3rd, which I believe was Sunday before last. It was advertised for construction in the paper. A few days before that, obviously, we had the flooding event. And so Mr. Kehler and I did go out on site this past Thursday. There has been some, not so much damage to the property, but additional debris that was not there the day before the 29th. And so we have, we're taking out doing some photos of the site to really get an understanding of how much more debris is there, and it seems to be quite a bit. The engineer is doing an assessment of if that debris load is going to impact the project, which again is out for bid right now. It's just maybe not so great timing, but that's how it works. We are having a pre-bid meeting tomorrow on the project, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout and maybe address some of the questions from contractors at that point if they have any concerns about it. They may look at it and say, it's just more trees we'll have to get rid of and that kind of thing, but it is something we're keeping an eye on. And potentially as it relates to FEMA and state reimbursement, if we had to spend $80,000 or $30 or whatever on debris removal, we might look for that source instead of counting it towards the project. So a big complicating factor, but something we'll keep working on and hopefully be able to have bids back in within a month or so.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Let's move to item number E. This would be the volunteers at the animal shelter. Go ahead, sir.
Right. You don't have, say, very little documentation, actually no documentation attached to the memo, but you were provided over the last couple of months information prepared by staff at the shelter and the Public Works Department, sort of outlining what a volunteer program would look like. Again, last month there was a great discussion on that program, and it really ended up at the point of the minimum age for volunteers. There was some language in the paperwork about maybe having young people as young as 12, as long as they were accompanied by a parent or guardian. And so there was a request that the county attorney look at it and chime in. I know the chairman has spoken with them directly about it, and I have as well. You don't have anything in writing, but he did recommend at this point doing a minimum age of 18 just because of liability concerns, supervision concerns, and really I think his point was to get the program started with 18 and above and really maybe see what you have going forward and maybe look at it down the road, but maybe not. It's a good idea just to start with that and not overwhelm ourselves from the beginning. So that was his recommendation, again, verbally, but if you'll take that for what it's worth.
Okay, and I'll say it's thanks to our animal advocates and welfare groups. They do a wonderful job in keeping animals out of the shelters. Mm-hmm. They and each one of them's got their special thing they do. I know Joey Harkler's group looks at the older animals and that kind of thing, and so I just hats off to our animal advocate groups do a great job. What's the comments or questions for staff?
As far as the minimum age being at 18, I will not be satisfied with this at 18 unless we do come back and look at this at a later date.
Yeah.
Because, that's what it's all about to me, is getting these younger kids involved in that. So if 18 is the number now, if that's what we have to do, okay, but I'm not happy with that to be set in stone. I will not go along with that. Only 18.
I'm with you on that one too, Tony. That is one of my concerns. 'Cause younger, you get a 16-year-old that's in the animal.
I mean, that's
call that, the
ridiculous.
high
I
school.
think we can have adults with them. So, and that's where I'm at.
And I understand that there's a concern about liability, but if they're handling it at the high school with that club that they have, Friends of the Animals or something like that, that there are 15 and 16-year-olds involved in that club. I just hate to see them wait till they're 18 because they're going to leave and go to college anyway. So, I don't know. I understand liability at 18, but that's kind of fighting that age too, Tony, so I'm with you.
All right.
That's all I'll say.
If you wanted, if I may, if you wanted to maybe come back in 6 months after the program started and just see how it's going, and then revisit. I mean, that's y'all's decision.
Whatever action you take, if there's a motion made and a second and it passes, to come back at a later date, you just have to have somebody make another motion. I don't know that you can say in 6 months, I guess you could.
That's up to the motion.
Yeah,
right?
that's the motion. Whatever the motion states is how you decide that. But I mean.
Well, I don't want to stop the process. I want to see this work and see it happen. And if we have to go through the 6 month trial or whatever to see how it's working out, that's what it is. But I refuse to accept the fact that we're not going to let younger kids get involved in this when they're wanting to, if it has to be with supervision or whatever. But that's really what the whole intent of it for me was from the beginning, was to involve younger kids in this. 18-year-old is an adult, and I'm looking at personally, I want to see younger kids involved in this because I think it's something. I've had several come to me with interest in it, and I am.
And your local animal groups, I'm sure would welcome any age to help them because they're out there doing the sales, or not sales, but the adoptions on Saturdays and set up different places. So they're always looking for volunteers, always.
Well, I move that we try it for 6 months as presented, and then in 6 months we take another look at it, and I will at that time recommend that we go a younger age if possible.
Second. Discussion.
The only thing I have a question, was the groups or even the high school volunteer group that's out there, the club, were they involved or was there any discussion with the animal groups or with the high school group that's there? I'm not saying you got to go all the way to elementary, but was there any discussion had with them about their thoughts on that?
Not on the age
Okay.
restriction. I
It's
don't
more
think there was a
toward-
conversation.
Okay.
There were conversations with different groups about
Okay.
volunteer program.
But this all originated because of younger people wanting to get involved. And that's what started the whole thing. And I remember.
Well, now for years, we've had animal rights advocates
No, but this
that want to
recently
be in
come
here.
up, and we talked about it at the last meeting, and that was the reason it come up, was because
Volunteer
these
advocates.
younger people were coming and asking and requesting. And that's the reason it came up. But, I made the motion that we go that way, but there may be some other comments or questions before, I
6
can
months
retract that
probationary
motion.
period, evaluate.
I can retract that motion if.
And it moves forward. It
Okay.
moves it forward, my opinion. And then we can reevaluate in 6 months.
Yeah. All right, any discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. All right, let's move to the next item. Policy revisions, item number F, old business.
Okay, last month we had administrative items that had about 8 things in it, and it was way too much, so broke out the policies this time just to make it a little bit easier. Again, these were first readings last month, and we try not to make a habit of picking on our friends and neighbors, but I will be honest, a lot of these policies were being pushed by the state treasurer's office based on news reports about activities in Buncombe County. This is where a lot of that is coming from. When, again, seeing the news, we respond to those things as well about whether it's Buncombe County or New York City or somewhere. We look at where there's inappropriate activity and say, okay, what are we doing in our agency where this could have been prevented? And sometimes things are caught and people are dealt with, but and the problem's dealt with. But these are areas that we had actually been looking at, and again, in response to Buncombe County, and these are model policies, a lot of them that the Treasurer's Office has put forward. Again, they're a credit card policy, a purchasing policy, a conflict of interest policy, and the travel policy. The first 2 and 3 are really the ones that the state has been pushing that each county and city have or update in some instances. And the travel policy is we try to revise about every other year just based on inflation for meal reimbursements and that sort of thing. Again, you had these last month. So the credit card policy is definitely brand new. We've not had one before. We've had a procurement policy that was a little more simple than what's been presented here, that covered procurement as well as credit card use. But this really lays out in great detail, as you can see, it's numerous pages, the appropriate usage. It even covers, for example, sometimes employees will use a credit card and lose a receipt. That's just, it was in the wallet and then it wasn't. There's a form in here for folks to fill out that details what it is. That's hopefully something that's very rare, but even that instance is covered. So right now we just say we'll write it down on a piece of paper and that's good. There's a form in here. So you're not going to always catch everything in a policy, but we're trying to be prudent, again, with the taxpayer dollars. And again, in response to some unfortunate activity in a neighboring county. Any questions about the policies as presented?
There being none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve policies as presented.
Second.
And discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay. Thank you. Let's move to new business. Item A, the DHHS Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Williams, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. A quick history lesson, which I probably do too much, but just for context, last year there was a bill introduced in the General Assembly. On the surface, black and white, it would have regionalized the DSS function. So right now, DSS is, you have 100 DSS agencies in North Carolina administered by the counties. And what we tell folks is that we're administering state and federal rules with a tiny amount of county input. It's mostly state and federal rules and regulations and programs that we implement. What this would have done is essentially taken it out of the county's hands as far as the operation and place it into state hands. Probably 4 or 5 counties at a minimum is what we were hearing. There was a lot of outcry from different counties that had done innovative department integrations with their health department. People didn't like that interference as they saw it from the state. So that was taken out. What they did leave in there is a study of essentially the state and county relationship. So there's been some study groups meeting for the last year. But there's also been some improved coordination and also some increased oversight from the state in this area. One of those improved or increased areas of oversight is this memorandum of understanding that's attached between the counties and the Department of Health and Human Services. So the bill required every county by the end of this fiscal year to enter into this MOU, and it essentially lays out the state and federal expectations for all of our program areas. This is essential. I told the chairman this is a memorandum of our understanding of how to follow the state and federal rules. It's not vice versa. This isn't a criticism, but it's definitely the state telling us what to do, because we're creatures of state government. We understand that, but we had some opportunity to review drafts of this document and say, well, how about this, how about that? But as far as this board saying, no, we don't like paragraph 10, take that out, you can't do that. So essentially, this is one of those where you have no choice. If you don't approve it, we don't receive state and federal funding for our DSS programs. So I don't think you have a lot of choice if we want to keep the doors and the lights open and on. Well, we'll take a minute just to go through not so much the agreement, because a lot of it's boilerplate. Again, it's essentially saying it's a one-year agreement that pretty much says that we will follow all the guidelines and rules and regulations of the Department of Health and Human Services. Where it starts to get in the detail a little bit is on page 122, and this is where they start breaking down the different units. So 122 is child welfare. As far as CPS assessments, page 123 is child welfare as it deals with foster care. So for this one, for example, I'll just pick one out. Number 2 on page 123, the county will ensure that 95% of all foster youth have face-to-face visits by the social worker each month. And again, that's something that each county will be required to do, at least at 95% level. And on that one, for example, we exceed that. There are a few areas where, again, we had a meeting the other day with the chairman, myself, Ms. Sprouse, and the finance director, Ms. Bell, just to review some of the areas of concern and interest at this point. Really, food and nutrition, for an example, was not a concern, but we have been working on that area for probably the last 3 years on improving response there. So again, that's an area we've been working. One of the areas where we're going to need to turn some focus is in our child support area. We have about 3 out of the 5 sections that were a little off on the target numbers, and so the unit supervisor has drafted a work plan to improve those areas, and you can see that on, I believe, page 133. And again, there's a lot of detail on, and I wouldn't recommend spending all night doing this.
Out of about, 25 different areas, we were just deficient or not meeting it in 5, I think.
That's right.
And then out of the 5 areas, they've already got a plan in place to correct that, to try to help ensure they do meet it.
So thankfully, we've got staff that are aware of these items. They've got correction plans, improvement plans already underway. If we had walked away from that meeting and were terribly concerned, we would have probably had another meeting the next day. But it appears that staff is working hard to get to those numbers. If it gets to the point where consistently we're not improving, once this agreement, this understanding is in place, MOU, we will start receiving letters from DHHS. And then at some point, it moves beyond letters to site visits and then holding of monies, that sort of thing. So we never want to get to that point. If we get a letter, that's serious enough. But we're working on that before it ever gets to that situation.
Let me just ask one question while we're right there at the child support. Is that talking about just the number of cases or the amount of collections that we do?
A lot of it does have to do with the collection rate.
And is that part not up to the judge that's sitting on the bench?
A lot of it has to do with, so the judge will make the order for the parent to make the payment. It's then our responsibility to take that charge, essentially, and I hate to say it, but go after that parent if they fail to voluntarily comply. And so sometimes you have folks that, most of the time, you have folks that are cooperating willingly, they're paying like they should be, but there are quite a few people that aren't, and we have to go through extreme measures to find.
So we're not, we would not, for lack of a better word, we would not be penalized if it's not an order, an actual
Right.
order. Okay.
These are ones that have been court ordered to pay child support.
Okay.
Okay, other comments or questions? There being none, since this is a mandatory item, mandatorily given down by the state to us, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the memorandum.
I second it.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Let's move to the next item, administrative items. Item B under new business. Mr. Wooten.
This may take a while. We're at the end of, but just for the public's knowledge, most people know we're on a July to June fiscal year, and so we're at the end of our year, which means we're wrapping up our budget, which means a lot of budget amendments. And so we have a couple of housekeeping items and then quite a few amendments that we can get to. The first one, I think it's page 143. It's labeled discrepancy form. There's quite a bit of information there for this family that had checked out a large number of items from our library facilities. And unfortunately, this family endured a fire to their RV that they live in, and which is obviously awful, but also in our regard, a lot of our property was destroyed in the fire. I did talk to Mr. Brinkley about this case. There were some late fees associated with it because you had the incident and the materials were due back. They had paid quite a bit of late fees before they did get information together to approach for a waiver of any replacement cost. And so the replacement cost for all the materials, and it was all books except for one DVD. I was actually quite a bit surprised. Get that number. So we get it down to the, it's $358. So you've got the letter from the family. You have information from Old Fort Fire Department that talks about the incident, where it shows the RV was a complete loss. And so they are asking for forgiveness for, I'm sorry, $385.59 was the total. I swapped some numbers, but $385.59. And most of that is books, one DVD.
Was the camper insured?
From what I could tell from the incident report, there was not insurance on the camper.
Okay.
For a claim.
Do we have insurance that would cover? I know it's small.
We do have insurance. The deductible is much larger than this.
Well, I mean, they couldn't help a fire. I mean, it's beyond their control.
That's right.
And I would hate to penalize somebody whose residence burned due to a fire that was beyond their control. Unlike the letter said, she said that they were just glad to make it out alive. So I'm glad they're safe.
So are we looking for action here?
Staff is asking for a waiver.
I move we grant a waiver.
I second that.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Williams, continue on.
Okay, you have a couple of project budget ordinance amendments. Starting on page 158 is the Stacy Hill Waterline Project. It's an amendment to that project ordinance. Then the next two, it's kind of unusual. 159 and then 160 are both the River Greenway project. 159, we're making some adjustments there. Based on, because we haven't actually done an amendment to that project ordinance in quite a while, so updating those numbers. And then Amendment 2 shows the DWR grant that about a year ago we received information on $500,000. So essentially, it's a kind of unusual again. We're having to add that in a second amendment because I think we had already done the first one, and then we got the information of the award on the DWR. So we would ask that you would approve those two as well. And then the last one on 161 is the courthouse renovation project. Is now that we have the financing numbers in hand, that sort of thing, is getting that project updated. You've got the four. I can do amendments.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Or comments or questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move we approve the amendments.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign.
As far as budget amendments, I think there's about 20 to 25. I am more than happy to read them all individually. It's up to you, though.
We can see them.
We've had time to look at
I've
it.
read them, yeah.
Do you have any questions about any in particular?
No.
No.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve all the listed budget amendments that we have.
Okay, got a motion, have a
Second.
discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Move to item number C, wheel loader.
And that's the one we're going to put off.
Check it out.
That's right, that's right. Item D, tax matters, releases, rebills.
These are fairly consistent. Starting on page 207, you do have some non-collectible accounts that we're asking a waiver on. In 208, I'll highlight in last year, it's been about 12 months, you had 3 property owners, primarily I think all in Queens Gap, that appealed their evaluation to the PTC, the Property Tax Commission. Those appeals have been settled, and you see the amounts. I'll read them out. They're not clearly stated. Each of those were sent to Raleigh with a value of $175,000 for those lots, and they were reduced to $17,500. We're required, when someone pays those, to repay the difference, and all these individuals did pay their taxes at the $175,000 value. You're required to repay the overage and give 5% interest, which is what this would do.
Okay, that sounds like it's probably state mandated to me. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we do it.
You got a motion, have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay?
I was going to say I move we swallow.
state come up here and give us some of that money then.
Yeah.
Ashley, anything else we need to do there?
No, sir.
Okay. Item E, board appointments. You've got a second reading on the Library Board of Trustees. You can vote for 2, and there are 2 people that have applied. Then you've got the McDowell Tech Board of Trustees, 1 vacancy, and you've got 1 that's applied. Both are second readings, and you can vote and pass your.
Sign it.
Oh, yes. I want to solve that and make it work for me.
And our clerk will read the results.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, it is unanimous for Library Board of Trustees, Charlotte Moore and Sharon Klein, and for the McDowell Tech Board of Trustees, Randy Holifield.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you notify those people? Now, next item is citizen comment. Do we have anybody who wishes to sign up to speak? So,
I hate to interrupt the public.
Got one more.
what is that now?
Number 3 on that memo, the Association of County Commissioners is asking for a voting delegate for the annual conference in August, which will be in Hickory.
Okay. Does the commissioner have a desire to go and to vote?
I'll go if you want me to. Okay.
All right. Okay, Commissioner Bone, that would be August the 25th on a Saturday from 3 to 4:30 in Hickory.
Okay.
Appreciate your patronage.
Okay. Let's make it for a motion right there.
Move we send Ms. Brenda Vaughn as a
Okay.
voting delegate.
Motion second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you. Now, last item is citizen comment. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak tonight? Come on up, sign up your name, and tell us your topic, and the floor is yours. Anybody? We'll start on this side. Start on that side? Okay, good deal. Nobody signed up. Now, reports, communications. Does anybody have an item, appointment, somewhere we need to be?
I did want to mention one thing. Cheryl may have some appointments. We're notifying the press definitely of this and any large customers, but the transfer station, we will have to close this coming Saturday to repair some damage to the floor. And so it will be closed all day this coming Saturday, the 16th. And so it's something we don't do lightly. We know that's an impact. Our convenience centers will be open, but the transfer station, the dump or whatever folks might call it, top of the hill, that is going to be closed. So that is, when you're doing concrete work, you can't do it in 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
One day's not bad.
All right.
Appreciate the understanding.
Anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Got a motion, second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Meeting is adjourned.